So welcome everybody. My name is Christina Clayton. I am one of the co-directors of the Northwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. It's a long way of saying we do training in TA. We're responsible for Region 10 and beyond. So we will get going here. We just want to first start with our land and labor acknowledgements. We at the University of Washington really want to acknowledge, even in this virtual space, that we reflect on and honor the lands on which we reside and know that these are unceded and stolen lands from Indigenous peoples who have been here since time immemorial. And we always want to work towards justice for these communities. And in Region 10, if you didn't know, there are 272 federally recognized tribes, as well as others that are not. Also, for the labor acknowledgement, this is a newer edition, but I really appreciate what it stands for. That, like other modern day institutions, the University of Washington and others benefit from the unaddressed legacy of stolen labor and slavery, which is at the foundation of this nation, and the vast and inequitable wealth. So we recognize our debt to workers past and present and want to support just labor practices. We'll put a great link in the chat from Native Land, and then we can move on. All right. Thank you for your patience today. We're in a pretty funny little situation trying to pull this webinar off. So want to share that the MHTTC is a nationwide network that actually includes 10 regional centers and 2 population-specific centers, Native American, Indian, Alaska Native, and the Hispanic and Latino MHTTC. Those 2 are actually sunsetting next month, and there will be new centers of excellence for both of those topics and communities. So stay tuned for updates there. But the MHTTC, we are in our 5th year, and we are located in Region 10 here at the University of Washington for our center, and that is cited at the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. And there are similar networks just like this for the addiction field and the substance use prevention field. So all of these events are free. Some are restricted to things in their region, but a lot of the events, products, resources all across the network, and all 3 networks are available to anyone. Now a little bit more about our MHTTC here in the Region 10. So our goals, like the network, are for supporting mental health related evidence-based practices and other best practices. We want to heighten knowledge, awareness, and skills around the behavioral health field, foster alliances, and address the diversity in the training needs, and also share, most importantly, free public available training in TA. Our area of focus for the network is evidence-based practices for psychosis, but we train in a lot more than that, as you are aware, because you're here today. So how we do that are things like this. We have all of our webinars recorded. We do virtual learning communities. We have online self-paced courses that the whole network has contributed to. All of them are free. We have a newsletter. If you don't get our event announcements and you want to, we'll put in the chat later when Peyton isn't having to screen share for me, how you can reach us and connect with us. We have a resource library. And then Lamar and I just recorded a little podcast, because we've been doing this podcast for a couple of years. And so that is also free. And it's a nice short way to get a little summary of a lot of the events that we do and topics and conversations. So very glad to have you here today. Some housekeeping things. So this is a webinar. It's a pretty large audience. You're muted. Your video is off. This is being recorded. You can use closed captioning, and we will send where you can find the links to the recordings and the slides and that later. And then you can also get a certificate of attendance if you like. We don't have formal CEUs, but you can get a certificate that has that at least showing that you attended. We also want to point out that if you are, which I can see is happening, but I can't see it right now because I don't have 2 screens, lots going on in the chat. That's a great place to connect. let our team, which is basically Peyton and I, know if you have any issues with tech or accessing anything. But if you have content questions for Lamar, please put those in the Q&A, and I will be queuing those up as the presentation goes along. Lamar, I apologize. I didn't catch if you want to do questions at the end. Yeah, okay. So that's what we normally do. So we will moderate and make sure hopefully there's enough time, and we'll get in many questions as we can. We show this slide for all the MHTTC events because we just want to acknowledge that language is really powerful. How we speak about issues and topics and people is really important. And so we just want to hope that, depending on the topic, depending on where everyone's at today, just being respectful and mindful and non-judgmental, and, people have access to the chat, share what you like, but, let's keep a positive, inclusive environment here today. We haven't really had issues with that, but we all agreed at the network we would say that, just to comment on that. Evaluation is really important to us, and I know you probably hate taking surveys as much as I do, but it literally takes 2 minutes. And what we do with these surveys, and there's a horrible personal code, and I just want to explain that SAMHSA just told us last week they will be removing all personal codes. You can put any letters and numbers on this survey that you want. It doesn't matter. Put any number of things. But what we really want is your feedback. And so there's, just a handful of questions, some where you just rate things, and a couple of qualitative where you can give us some narrative feedback. But we use this in an aggregate way. We don't know who said what, but it's really important to the presenter. It's important to our team to know how this landed today. And so you'll get a prompt a couple times today, and then a little email reminder from Zoom. So we just know that we take it seriously. We really love hearing what you have to say. So it's not just performative. Lastly, SAMHSA funds us, and they don't really have opinions about what we're talking about today. How could they? But just, we have to share this disclaimer. On to the good stuff. I am so pleased to have Lamarr Lewis. He is a new friend to our MHTTC family, but I hope is going to be a longtime friend. And I'm going to actually let him introduce himself, because it's kind of boring to just read a bio and then you're sitting there as a speaker and then you want to share some different stuff. So Lamar, I'm so excited to hand the reins over to you. Peyton and I will probably just go off camera and be off in the background, but we'll be here looking at questions and looking at the chat. And other than that, I'm so grateful that you're here today.
No, I'm glad to be here. It sucks I won't see you all's faces, but hey, it's all good.
Oh.
We are going to figure it out. So can everybody hear me? I saw somebody say something about the speaker breaking up. I don't know if that was me. Okay. All right, cool. So we solid. All right. Oh, look at all those pretty.
Do you want to see our faces, Lamar? I can stay on camera. I know it's just 2 faces, but some people have actually said that.
Well, since we're introducing ourselves, I'm a preacher's kid. So that's one of my introduction points. So, amens and yes, Lords make the sermon go faster. So knowing that the stuff is resonating does help me, but I can do whatever works for the team. I'm here for the team. Yeah. Oh, y'all going to be seeing a lot of laughing emojis for this day is over with, because I'm going to say a lot of stuff that's going to be funny. I guarantee it. That's one part of my disclaimer. My second part of my disclaimer is I have ADHD. That is not me talking, that is actually a verified diagnosis. So my mind moves fast. That's why we're saving the questions till the end, because otherwise I get distracted and we'll never get done, because I'll go on some tangent and you'll be like, man, where is this guy going? Go ahead.
Speaking of ADHD, sorry. Peyton, I am sorry. I did not intend for you to share screen the entire time. Lamar, are you able to share your presentation?
Absolutely.
So you can go. Okay, I'm so sorry. Just realized I'm like, I'm still looking at Peyton's screen. So Peyton has the really important job of putting things into the chat for you all, and he cannot do that if he's screen. But Lamar, you can do. Hopefully you can do it on your own, and we'll just go quiet again. All right, thank you.
Me and Peyton worked some stuff out earlier, and we will listen, y'all. I'm not a diva at all. I'm very easy to please. So we just gonna figure this whole thing out. I want everybody to enjoy their time. I know for you all out in the West Coast, it's morning time. For me, it's afternoon. So, this is kind of when I kick up. And forgive me, I have a laptop that's probably older than some of the people on this call. So if I'm dragging a bit, that's what that is. It's not, it's not you. It's this old computer. I seen some people here from Ohio. That's my home state. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. So hey, everybody from Ohio in the Midwest and all over the country. I seen people from all over the place. I looked at the poll and it looks like people are in various stages of their career. Some of you all are new to the game. Some of you all are veterans like myself and been in the game a little bit. Again, probably longer than my youthful energy belies. But regardless, I'm glad you all are here. And today we're just talking about holistic leadership. This is a mindset primer. And all that simply means we're going to just touch on some topics over these next few hours. And hopefully something that is said today will be a benefit to you. The subtitle is Creating Professional Cultures of Wellness, Compassion, and Growth. Just so you all know, this is what we're going to be focusing on, right? And when I think of leadership, I'm thinking of anybody, right? It doesn't matter what your role is in your organization. If you're new to the field or you've been in it 20-some years like myself or more, it doesn't matter where you are, you're a leader. And I approach this this angle from that, right? So if you understand that and you believe that same thing, this is just an opportunity to help you sharpen your sword a bit, okay? So don't let your title deter you from thinking that you're a leader. You are a leader, even if you just lead yourself, right? You still leading, okay? So I am a therapist by trade. I think I probably should say that. But in this capacity, I do something totally different. I've done a whole bunch of stuff, and over the course of these 2 hours, will feel like family at the end. I want to share a bunch about myself. So, I'm not just making this stuff up. I did read some books. I read a lot of books. I have a lot of student loan debt to confirm that I read a lot of books, but I also have many years of just being in the field, working with folks from all different walks of life. And that's where I'm coming at this from. So I want to make sure I share that. I think that's a good intro, right? Because I could keep going. It's hard for me to talk about myself. You all can tell, right? But I'm thankful for the opportunity. I'm glad. I'm looking forward to it. And let me just stop talking. Well, I won't stop talking, but let me stop talking about myself and move forward. How about that? All right. So I always begin my webinars, workshops, trainings, whatever, with quotes, because they set the tone to me for what we're going to do. So I have 2 quotes, and you'll hear many more throughout the course of this morning for you all. Again, afternoon for me. I got to stay focused. The first one is from John Quincy Adams. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. I'll say it again. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. That's again from John Quincy Adams, which goes back to what I just said, right? If you're helping, and everybody on this call, 217 of you all who are on this call with me, right? You understand that we inspire hope. No matter what role you're in, you can be a case manager, you could be a director, you could be lead therapist, you can be person sweeping. It doesn't matter, right? Your job with the people that we serve is to inspire hope. And if you can inspire them through helping them learn more, not just about themselves, but about their perspective of the world, and do more and become more, it's helping them see beyond where they are, to let them know that you can move further. You're a leader. Also, leadership is the art of giving people a platform for spreading ideas that work. Leadership is the art of giving people a platform for spreading ideas that work, right? One of the best things about being a leader is giving people the opportunity to flourish and grow and develop, right? Whether that be the people you serve, whether that be the programs you run, and you provide your team the opportunities to showcase their gifts and talents and skills and abilities. It's an art. It's not just skills. You need skills, right? But there's an art to giving people the opportunity to see within themselves and to grow. So that's kind of the energy we're going to be going through this webinar with. And I'm hopeful that you get something from it. Learning objectives. This is what we're doing. I'm here. This is a labor of love, but I'm here because we have to meet certain benchmarks. If I don't meet these benchmarks, then I don't come back. And I love y'all like cook food, but I would like to come back. So let me make sure we go over what we're supposed to go over. One of the first things we're going to learn is how to communicate information effectively to generate value and empower others to achieve programmatic goals. And I want everybody to know that every time you do these emojis, these give me life. So keep them up. I appreciate it. It keeps me going. I can't hear y'all, but I feel the love coming from your computer screens, no matter where you are. Second thing, describe how your personal issues and traumas, past experiences, as well as systemic and cultural barriers can impact your ability to model consistent self-care. I'm really big on self-care. We talk about holistic. We're not looking just at who you are at work. We're looking at you as a whole person. That's something that's big to me. So that's something I want to make sure we touch on, help you develop ways to increase functional support and promote workplace cultures that for collective wellness through innovative engagement methods and practical tools, and identify opportunities to promote equity and to address access to care and service provision and inequalities. What does all that mean? Simply all that means is we're going to go through some stuff, talk about some things that will help you express yourself more clearly, understand some of the stuff you have going on within you that may be impacting your ability to lead, and hopefully find ways to create cultures of wellness that we can not just have within our teams, but also promote for the people that we serve, right? One of the biggest things that we do, no matter what setting that you're in, is you're modeling for the people that you serve, how they can show up in the world, right? So we want to continue to do that. And that's what this is going to be about. All right. So icebreaker time. And even though I know I can't hear you or see you, we're going to do this together just so I get to know you a little bit and you can get to know me a little bit. All right. So here's what I want you to do. This is what we call a chat storm. All right. And you're going to do this a few times today. I know webinars aren't to be super duper interactive, but I don't want you to sit there and fall asleep at the computer too. So I want to make sure we're doing some things to make sure everybody's engaged. So with the chat storm, all we're going to do, I'm going to ask you a question. You type your answer. Before you press enter, I'm going to count to 3. Everybody presses enter at the same time. And what will happen is we'll have one big form or whatever of everybody's answers versus them kind of trickling in like a raindrop. So it's more like a chat storm versus raindrops. Okay. Then that way, Peyton, Christina, and myself can have the information. We can use it. We can say, hey, this is who we did and whatever. All right. So everybody ready. So here is the question. In 1 or 2 sentences, preferably 1, what are your hopes or what is your hope for today? Like, what do you hope to get out of your time with me today? All right. So 1 or 2 sentences. Don't press enter yet. We're going to count to 3. I'm going to give y'all a couple seconds. Oh, thanks. Man, Peyton, you all right with me, man. You're all right with me. Oh, see, some of y'all ain't even, some people didn't follow the directions. It's okay. It's all right. So hold on, everybody. Hold on. Don't press enter yet. It's okay. It's all right. I know we got some high achievers in here. It's okay. We got some high achievers in here. I'm not I'm not worried about it. On the count of 3, we're going to press enter. Then you're going to send your sentence. If you already sent it, just copy it and send it on back. All right. 1, 2, 3. Enter. Let's see what the chat. There, you see the difference? Look at all that. Look at all that. Yo, yeah. Support leadership skills. Be a better leader. Cool. Learn more. Professional growth, increase morale. Support and development. Okay. All right. Oh, Doug said, I want whatever you put in the title, sir. That's what Doug said. Doug said that's what I want. Communication skills. Okay. All right. Cool. Stupendous. Great. So we have a general synopsis of what we're looking for. Okay. All right. So, what am I hoping for today? I'm hoping that I can provide a little bit of everything y'all just said. So if I can do that, then I won today and I can come back and we can have a good time sometime in the future. That's my hope for today, that y'all get some value out of what I'm doing. All right. So y'all ready to rock and roll? If you're ready to rock and roll, let me get some ones in the chat. If you're ready to rock and roll, let me get some ones in the chat. So I know we rocking and rolling. Oh, I see some. Oh, I got enough ones. That's all I needed to see. I got enough ones. Yep, here we go. Now it's time to get to it. Okay. So I see thumbs up over here, all that good jazz. All right. So first things first, leadership mindset primer. And I'm big on keeping my time agreement. So if you see me glancing over, it's because I'm trying to make sure I don't over talk. I got to keep on my time agreements. Okay. So again, we talked about a leadership mindset. And so I have a question for you all. And I would try to do a chat storm again, but I'm going to hold it. I don't want to keep doing that over and over. I don't want to take my thunder. So I'm just going to ask a general question and just give me some answers in the chat. Why is mindset important to leadership? Why is mindset? Why is how you think about things, your perspective on things? Why is that important to leadership? Learn new skills, builds confidence, trickles down. Okay, how you see things affects how you act as a leader. Yep. Intentions sets the tone. Okay, sets the tone. I see that a few times. What you perceive, yeah. So it looks like it helps us learn, helps us set the tone for our teams, right? It helps us to realize how we see the world impacts how we lead in the world, right? So all of those answers are absolutely on target. I'm gonna look at a couple more before we keep going. Building morale, it's the compass of everything. It helps lead in the right direction, helps you relate to people, it gives you something to come back to when you get discouraged. Randy, that is a great answer. We're going to come to that. Stay focused, stay driven to create a culture that we want, cultivating values. All those answers, and I'm sure there'll be more. If we sat and we could do that just all day, just think about how mindset is important to leadership, right? What we're going to do this first part of our time together is identify different things that help us think differently about leadership, hopefully, or just give a different perspective on leadership. Then the second part of the day, we're going to focus more so on why the holistic approach is a good method of leadership. Okay, so we're going to talk about preparing our minds to lead and why the holistic approach is a great approach to use, especially when we're dealing with the populations that we serve, right? Because, and put a 1 in the chat if this is you. I'm going to share a bit about my experience, right? I got into this work as a young man. I'm still young, but an even younger man, shall I say, probably closer to Peyton's age, a little bit younger, I had a little bit more elasticity in my face and I had, less gray in the beard, right? But as a young man, I got into this work because I experienced a lot of trauma growing up. I didn't know what it was at the time. I thought how I was living was normal, right? I went through a lot of things and I was about 18, 19 when I realized that I wanted to make the world better than when I got it. And I couldn't bring, so one summer when I was 19, like 3 of my friends got killed a month apart. And where I'm from in Dayton, Ohio at that time, the violence was rising. It was really, it was really rough times at that time. And I bring that up because I remember like I'm at the funeral with my friend, I'm crying, and I wanted to find ways not to have other people feel how I felt, right? I wanted to do my thing. I want to do something to help, right? I felt like I was kind of on the outside looking in, just kind of at the whim of the world. And I felt like I want to do something to actively change the paradigm, right? And so I would say that because I've since learned many people come to this field because they've been through something. They've worked through it, they've got over it, and they want to help other people not feel what they felt or work through what they've worked through. If that's you, you can put a 1 in the chat, or you can put some of y'all sending hearts or thumbs up, whatever. If you got into this work because you've been through something and you want to help other people, put some 1s in there so I can make sure we're on target. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not alone. I'm not alone, which makes me feel good. Right. That's something else we're going to talk about too. Right. Oh, look at all the love. I appreciate you all. Yeah, indeed. So in realizing that, it's important for us to be aware that these experiences shape us, right? And they can sometimes be the battery in our back, the thing that motivates us. And they also can be something that can blind us from other things that we're missing, right? So that's why we want to kind of approach it this way. That's why I want to approach it from a holistic perspective, because as this quote is going to say, you as a leader are leading a whole person. You're not just leading an employee or a staff member, right? And you as a leader are a whole person as well, not just a manager, director, whatever it is you are, right? And why is this important to remember? Because sometimes we look at the people that we work with, even people that we serve, right? The clients that we work with, or I know in different states you use different terminologies. You may say consumer, you may say individual, you may say person, whatever term you use. You may say patient if you're in a hospital, whatever, right? We look at the behaviors. Sometimes we don't look at why a person's behaving how they are. And that's kind of our job, though, is to always figure out, yeah, Mr. Lamar has issues with focus. Why is that? Oh, well, Mr. Lamar's brain chemistry is different. He actually has this diagnosis. So if we pay attention to that, then maybe we can help correct something. I didn't get that. I didn't figure out I had ADHD till I was almost 40 years old, which belies my age. So I was going to say my little age joke, but I didn't told on myself now. So, whatever. But I figured this out a few years ago. And why do I say that? Because I've spent, I wish I could like pan my laptop so y'all can see my desk. Like you go, oh yeah, he definitely has ADHD. Like my executive functioning has always been off, right? I didn't know that. I didn't know what executive functioning was. I just knew I would get yelled at for not keeping my room clean or being late or not turning in homework or things like that, right? Now, if people paid attention, they may have caught that. But it's a different time. It's the 80s, 90s. It's a different time. Now we have a lot more information at our disposal. And I share all this because I want you to understand that you're not in this alone, right? And to remember that everything you've experienced brought you here. Right. So now that I know, I'm giving myself as an example again, now that I know I have ADHD and I study it now and I research it and I sit on webinars like this and I try to learn from experts, when I sit across from people who have ADHD, I can help them better understand what they're going through and help them approach it from a holistic perspective. Hey, yeah, I know you may not want you not want your son or daughter to take ADHD medication because you think it'll make them a zombie, but that's not actually accurate. ADHD medicine is one of the most, if not the most tested psychotropic medication we have. It works. That's why they keep prescribing. Like I can say that with assurity now, and I can confront some of that because now I know, right? And so it's really important to keep that in mind as you're leading. The more you know about a person, the more you look at them as an entire human instead of just I'm this, I'm that, he's this, he's that. It definitely aids us in how we lead. So I wanted to make sure I sat on that for a minute because I felt like that was important. But let's move forward. Problems with modern leadership, and maybe not modern leadership. Let's just say some leadership problems in general. I'm going to list off a few things and I'm going to list them off by number. I'll go over them a few times. I probably should have typed it up and put it in the chat, but you all are bright people. You'll keep up with me. I'll keep up with you. If you look at, and I want y'all to be clear, like I'm real intentional about the pictures I pick. Like I spend time putting these pictures, like I try to find it to make it make sense. So I wanted to connect with you. This young lady looks exasperated. She looks frustrated. She looks overwhelmed, right? And I am willing to admit, if you all want to let me know, how many of you have ever received an email from one of your superiors and you've looked at the email like this lady? If this has been you, thumbs up, finger one. I'm putting two fingers up because I know I'm not the only one who's experienced it. Right? You look at the email like, are they for real? Oh my goodness. What did they? Oh, Lordy B. Oh, look at the wave of fingers, right? Like this is literally, I know I'm not alone, right? And so when I saw this picture, I said, that's the one I want to use because I know I've made that same face. And I'm willing to bet some of you all have used some language that we can't say in a setting like this because we're in a professional setting and you said something inappropriate in your office when you saw the email. I'm just guessing. I'm just saying I could be off. Maybe it's just me, right? Be better than me. Be better than me, right? So I'm gonna list off a few of the problems that we've heard. And if you pay attention to the numbers I'm gonna give and type in your, don't press enter yet, but type in your chat bar what numbers resonate with you that you've experienced, okay? So problem number one, I would say, is a lack of compassion, i.e. suck it up, okay? I can't speak for any of you all, but my biological father wasn't a part of my life. That's a whole nother issue for another day. We're not here for me today. We're here for you all. But there's a reason I bring that up, because my grandfather was my primary role model growing up, okay? Now, my grandfather just turned 80 a few days ago. He was born in 1943. To put that in context, he was 12 when Emmett Till was killed, right? And civil rights started. So I want to put all this in context. And I say that because he has a very old school aesthetic. You work hard, you get up, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you get up early, you stay up late, whatever the family needs, you make it happen. You work hard, you work hard, you work hard. And one of his key phrases, there wasn't a lot of emotional intelligence in my house, if you can't tell, was suck it up. If your feelings were hurt, suck it up. You're crying, suck it up. You skin to knee, suck it up. Like that's how he raised me and my brother. So that I've been around leaders like that. Like, oh, well, hey, man, suck it up. It is what it is. Deal with it. We need you here. We need this. We need that. Right. So that's one. That's number one, the lack of compassion or the suck it up leader. Number two is the ego leader, or it's all about me. Right. I'm the star of the show. You all are just my bandmates. I'm Beyonce. You all are Destiny's Child. It's like, I'm Michael Jackson. You're the Jackson 5. Like, it's, you know what I'm saying? I think about, I don't know if you've all seen the Temptations movie, but, you know, I'm David Ruffin. Nobody's coming to see you, Otis. Like, that's kind of like, you know, that person, right? So the ego-driven leader, it's about them. They don't see anybody else in their circumference. It's just them. And you're here to do their beck and call. I guess some of us have experienced that too. The third type of leader, I would call the ostrich syndrome. Right now, if you know about an ostrich, ostriches are fast. They moving. But ostriches do what? They can put their head in the sand, and life can pass them by. This is encapsulated by the phrase, "I didn't know that was an issue." Oh, that's a problem? I didn't know. I was in my office. You know, this is the leader that you never see. You don't even know that they're on site until you like go to lunch and you're like, oh, you're still here? I didn't know you were here. That is the ostrich syndrome. I see more people laughing, so I know I'm not the only one who's dealt with this either. Number 4, the lack of humility, right? So that's different from the ego. When I say lack of humility, it's more like my way or the highway. I used to hear that a lot from my mom, right? Like, this is the way I want it done. I don't need your input. My way or the highway. I know the right way to go about this, right? And some of these you might hear some overlap, right? Some of these are, you know, and hopefully you never met one person who has all 8 of these. That would be really unfortunate. But you know, hey. Number 5, outdated thinking. This is one I know I've experienced a lot. This is how it's always been. Man, you know, hey, this is how it is. Like, you know, they've always done this. The people where I used to work at, the 4th floor is where the administration is. Oh, it's always 4th floor. Yeah, man. You know, they just do what they do. It is what it is. There's not a lot of room for innovation, not a lot of room for creativity, not a lot of room for new ideas. Number 6, culturally incompetent. We're supposed to at least be competent culturally. If you've been in this field, you've taken any cultural classes, the hope is that you're at least competent. Now, what does competent mean? Good enough. You should at least be good enough to know, hey, I don't know certain things, so let me not act like I know certain things. Educate me, right? I appreciate you mentioning the land use earlier as we introduce ourselves, right? And I started doing some work in Mississippi with the band of Choctaw Indians. That's what they want to be called. I'm calling them that, right? So when I go in there this first time, I don't know nothing about them besides what I saw on Google, which ain't always good, right? So what did I do? I'm going to approach them humbly and ask them, hey, man, please tell me about your experience, because I don't want to assume that I know or hear maybe some misinformed people telling me about their experience with you. I need to come at you with some humility, right? Because I don't want to be incompetent. There are some leaders who don't mind being culturally incompetent, and they resist diverse perspectives. I'm going to say that one more time. They resist diverse perspectives, right? Or a better way to say it, they may do lip service to diversity and wanting different cultures involved in their experience, but they also don't put any action towards it. All right, I'm just going to leave that where it lies. I ain't going to say nothing else about it. Another number 7, so that was 6, culturally incompetent. Number 7, the alpha A-type personality. You hear that noise in the background? That's my super excited dog. I apologize. She's on 10 all the time. Like, so she's gonna settle down, I promise you. Hopefully she doesn't jump on me in a second. So get that disclaimer. I do love dogs, and she's mine. A-type personality is the micromanager. It's the micromanager, right? It's the person who, hey, Peyton, hey, man, you said you was gonna do that by 5:30. It's 5:29, sir. Right? Like, and I know that doesn't happen to you, sir. I'm just giving an example, right? I'm just giving an example of how these things can manifest, right? Or you get that follow-up email, or the, that type of thing, right? The microman. We all know micromanage. I don't need to go into no details of that. We all know what that is. The last, number 8, will be outcome or performance driven, right? It's all about the numbers. Many of us I've seen work with nonprofits, right? So we have to meet certain measurables and hit certain performance outcomes so that we're able to keep our grants, right? So we can still get paid and take care of our families and, keep the lights on. But when we become all about the numbers, that's another situation. Some of us who have been in leadership, we learned, and me and Christina talked about this earlier during the podcast, like it becomes about reports and reports about reports, and then a report about the report that was a report, and then a memo about the report that was, it becomes everything but service, right? It becomes about the numbers and less about the people. Okay, so we'll run through them one more time, then we're going to do another chat storm. Number 1, lack of compassion, suck it up. Number 2, ego, it's all about me. Number 3, ostrich syndrome, I didn't know it was an issue. Number 4, lack of humility, my way or the highway. Number 5, outdated thinking, this is how it's always been. Number 6, culturally incompetent, they resist diverse perspectives. Number 7, alpha A-type personality, aka the micromanager. Or number 8, outcome, performance driven, all about the numbers. So type out the ones you've experienced by number, and in 3 seconds, we're going to put it in the group chat. Or some of y'all already doing it, I already know. 3, 2, 1. Let's see. What we dealing with here? I'm looking in the chat. Me and my, I'm sorry, y'all. My computer's doing what it want to do. There we go. All right, I apologize. Some of y'all saying oh Lord. Lord. Some of y'all saying I don't even want to see no more. I don't want to see no more. Y'all hurt my heart. I was just playing when I said some of y'all. Some of y'all really dealt with all 8 of those in one person or at one time. That's unfortunate. Glory. God bless you. That's heavy. That's heavy. So briefly, what are some other problems that maybe I didn't mention that you all are seeing or you all have experienced? Are there other things that, and I'm always surprised because I always find that, like, when I look at this, like, there's so many other things that I missed. Are there any other things you've experienced different than the 8 that I outlined? Vindictive. Make ill-informed decision. Guilt trips, inconsistencies, secret agendas, stop communicating, disorganized and indifferent. Oh my. Bullying. Oh Lord. Wow. So okay. All right. Sets the fires to be the hero. That's a whole nother can of worms. We're not going to deal with that. So now I have another question. I'm big on accountability. How many of us have ever exhibited any of these characteristics?
Lamar,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
was just thinking that same thing. Unfortunately, many of us, I won't speak for myself, may have indeed resonated with some of that, because you don't think you're going to be like this as a leader, and you've seen what you don't want to emulate as a leader. And then something happens, you're like, oh no, I'm doing that. So anyway, I just want to echo that if anyone else is feeling like that, it happens. We work in stressful conditions and with supervisors like these that we just told about. And sometimes we learn not the best way to do things. So we have to unlearn some things. So anyway, I just wanted to comment. I was hoping, I was thinking to say it, and then I knew you'd get there. And there, you just got it. You're reading my mind today.
It's all good. I got you. I got you back. I promise you. Yeah. I know I was guilty of it. I definitely, because one thing that I learned, and there's a friend of mine, he's since passed away. But I don't want to keep talking about sad stuff. I'm sorry, y'all. It sounds sad, but he's a good person. He's always on my mind. He's taught me a lot. I don't want y'all to feel like everything is sad. I'll make sure I'm clear on that. I just use myself as a model, right? And so he's a little bit older than me, and he would always, I would come to vent to him about various things. And before he passed, he worked for me in the department I was running. And so one day I was just stressed out about all this stuff that nobody trained me on, right? All these different staffing issues that I was having. And he explained this to me, like I'm going to explain it to you all, and it helped give me some solace. He said, middle management is probably one of the most difficult places to be in, because you have the responsibilities at the top you have to address, right? You have to make sure that you meet the benchmarks and all that stuff you have to do, right? But then you're also, especially if you're like many of us, like myself, you were working with people that you're now over. You're now there, they're now your direct subordinate, or whatever proper term we use nowadays. I know it changes, so I apologize if I don't want to offend anybody. But somebody who's now, working for you. And so you have that you have to manage, right? Your staff, people used to work for you. Sometimes people feel like they can do your job better than you, all that stuff, right? But then you also have the community, the stakeholders, the clients, people that you serve. So you're all in this, you're in this pressure cooker. And it's a very difficult spot to be in. And sometimes the people at a level below you don't know what you experience at the level above you, right? So that's where the compassion comes in. We'll talk about compassion in a minute, but that's where the compassion comes in for people. Not to say we're putting up with some of these behaviors or we're just allowing them to happen, but just to put it in perspective, right? And kind of understand why people might be doing what they're doing. Sometimes you never know that leader who is giving you all this grief, because they're getting their grief above them. And they're trying to keep people employed. They may not know how to articulate that in a effective way, which hopefully we will by the end of this time. But sometimes that's what it is, right? So just, keeping all that in mind. But I wanted to share that little nugget with you all. So hopefully that gives you all some solace, like it gave me some. Like I said, my friend, I know he's passed away, but he's given me so much insight and so many jewels that I mean, literally almost every day I reference something that he told me, because he just was that insightful, So hopefully you have somebody in your life who is that insightful for you. Hopefully they're still here, but if they're not, that their wisdom lasts with you. And hopefully I can be that for some of y'all. Give y'all some, some wisdom. Learn from my mistakes. Like I always tell people, be better than me. Be better than me so we can push forward. So let me keep going, because I feel like I'm about to sit on that for a minute. So what is holistic leadership? Let me read this quote to you here. As a leader, you are responsible for ensuring that your team feels valued and respected in order to achieve any kind of success. Lamarr Lewis, as a human being, I operate with every human on this planet, no matter where you're from, what you look like, from a baseline of respect. I always do. I don't call people out their names. I don't raise my voice to people. There's certain things I just don't do, right? And that's how I move throughout this world. You can't, and from my perspective, get anything done if at a core level, people don't respect you. I've never seen it really work long term. People may do stuff, but they're not doing it out of respect for you. They're doing it because they need a paycheck. They got their own motives, whatever the case may be. So as a leader, you have to ensure that your team feels valued and respected if you want to achieve any kind of success. Now, what success is different for everybody on this call. That doesn't negate the fact that we still need to value and respect the folks that we have. And I realize that we don't have a bunch of resources often, right? But that doesn't change the reality that do what you can to make people feel valued and respected. All right. So when we're talking about holistic leadership, and everybody on this webinar reached out, clicked on this and for a reason, right? So few of you all, like, when you hear the term holistic leadership, like, what does that mean to you? Like, you could just put it in the chat. We don't have to, like, unmute anybody, Peyton. I don't want you to do you can just sit and enjoy, sir. I don't want you to do anything extra. Right? But just when you hear the term holistic leadership, what does that mean to you? Or why would you click on this out of all the other amazing webinars that are offered here? Why this one? Yeah, caring for the whole person. Remember that people are more in their positions. Yep, multi-perspective. Yep, treating human holistic sounds like mind, body, and soul. More than just a boss supervisor. Yep, well-rounded perspective. Yep, treating others, being aware, self-improvement. Yeah. You all got it. It's a lot, but you all kind of got the gist of it. For me, holistic leadership, from my perspective, right? When we define holistic, it's the belief that the parts of something are interconnected and can be explained only by reference to the whole, right? So somebody mentioned mind, body, and spirit. I think we're now just starting to catch up to this thousand year realization that all this stuff is connected, right? Your mind, your body, your spirit, it all comes together. You can't just mind and then compartmentalize your body. Like, it all goes together, right? And so when you realize things are interconnected, and that's just how your body is, how you are. So imagine if you're trying to build out something bigger than that, we have to be interconnected with other people. That's how we've lasted as long as we have as a species. Not because I did something by myself, but no, hey, Peyton's a genius, Christina's a genius. Let's come together and put this genius together and let's move this thing forward, right? Otherwise, if it's just my genius and I'm by myself, I'm looking at their background, like, I don't know how to survive in that. Like, I like to go, to restaurants and eat ramen and drink Arnold Palmer's and things like that. Like, I'm not trying to go fish for the salmon. I just want the salmon to be on my plate when I order it, right? So, but if Peyton knows how to do that, then we can figure something out. You know what I'm saying? So that's my perspective, right? And when we're talking about it, we want it to be focused on being person-centered, strength-based, learning-oriented, and solution-focused. Person-centered, strength-based, learning-oriented, solution-focused. That's what this is to me, right? It's leading with the understanding that you're guiding a group of people to achieve a common goal. In a former life, I used to be a basketball coach. Actually, I just stopped coaching this year. And one thing I've learned, right, is that as a coach, you have to take what you're given. Like, I didn't volunteer. I definitely wasn't getting paid. When you volunteer at a public school, you realize that, like, certain schools we would play against, they would get the best school, like the best kids from the area, and build up these teams. And you're playing kids who were like, one kid we played, because I was coaching my son, and his junior year, this kid was a senior. He was like the number 2 or 3 draft pick the next year. Like, he's like, you're playing against kids who are like, upper echelon, and you're a public school, right? You get the kids who are in the neighborhood. And so one thing I've learned is that you have to work with what you have and develop, which we talk about leadership, develop who you have in such a way that they want to stay with you, right? Because I know retention and staff burnout and all that stuff is a big part of what we're dealing with too. But if people know that you value them and respect them, that means you also will take time to be intentional with them and to help them develop, right? But you have to be intentional about developing others. So, $1 million question, this is rhetorical, no need for answers. How have we been leading if we're not leading the whole person? This is just a question to think about. I'm not, I tell people all the time, I have $1 million question. You might only have a $2 answer for me, but hey, just think about it. I don't want the quick answer. I want the right answer. Just ponder that. If we've been leading all this time and we're not leading the whole person, Who are we leading? What are we leading? Right? This is important. Why holistic leadership? Leadership lessons unfold at unlikely pace. This is so true. So true. So true. So true. And there are like 7 principles of holistic leadership. I'm not going to read them all to you because I don't like doing that. However, one of the ones that sticks out to me is holistically led collaboration requires that the participants' right to self-determination be respected. Right? We talk about self-determination. What does that mean? That means that I'm able to define for myself the direction I want to go. How many of us have ever had somebody, and we've seen a lot of potential in, for example, but they just didn't want what we had to offer them. They didn't want the mentorship. They didn't want the guidance. They didn't want the support. But we saw all the potential in them, right? Right? Who have we overlooked who may have needed the same thing because we're so focused on the person who, we're enamored with their potential, right? So and the same with the people that we serve, right? If we're approaching them from a person-centered perspective, yes, you may come to me with this diagnosis, but you're the expert of your experience, right? That's that person-centered approach. You're the expert of your experience. So how can I best help you versus me telling you what's wrong with you, right? I don't know how it is in other areas, but I know in Georgia, we have transitioned from the medical model to the recovery model, right? So we're trying to support people in their recovery and help them understand that, conceptualize that, right? So that means what? Not saying we're not diagnosing people because we have to know what's going on. But if we're not, again, looking at them holistically, then we're missing key parts of their recovery. If we just, hey, man, take your medicine, come to group, come to therapy. Yeah. But if we're not meeting their needs, then what? Right. And the exercise of self-determination in a way that realizes that an individual's best potential results from an iterative process that must be supported. We're talking about an iterative process. Iterative is just taking something and continuing to adapt it, change it, improve it, right? It's a process of continual improvement. It means I have to check in with you, make sure you're good. Is what I'm giving you now still working, or if it's not? Full disclosure, I also do a lot of couples therapy, right? And something that if people, I'm giving you all free couples counseling right now, please take this nugget with you. Whatever couple you're in, doesn't matter what kind of couple you're in, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter your gender expression, doesn't matter your sexual, none of that matters. This is universal across the board. Y'all ready for it? People change. How I met you is not how you'll be, hopefully, next year, 5 years, 10 years, if you make it 20, 30, people change. And if we're not constantly coming back to the drawing board and saying, hey, is this still working for you? Is there something I'm not doing? Is this something, et cetera, et cetera? If we're not constantly checking in with our partners, right, that's how we have these issues and people end up in front of me. But I will say it is recession proof because not everybody has this understanding that I'm giving you all. So if you haven't done it lately, check in with your partner. Say, hey, we good? What's going on? Let's talk about this, right? Just a little nugget of wisdom. Again, giving y'all free because I love y'all so much, man. We like family. I want to give y'all value. If y'all remember nothing else, put in my evaluation, he gave me free couples counseling today. Keep that in mind. I think this would be a good time to talk about our learning community. I like to talk about that. In the next few weeks, we'll be doing learning community. That'll get out to you all. But I want to share that right now because it's very similar to this with me. You're going to get me. I'm going to show up as I am. You're going to get a lot of information. We're going to learn, but I also want it to be a time. This is me modeling for you all, creating a space of openness that we're able to just kind of share and be who we are and work through things. So this is just an example of that. Go ahead, Crystal.
And Lamar, thank you. So unfortunately, at this point, it's limited to people in Region 10, and we do have limitations on how many people can be because it's interactive, but it is the kind of thing that we do really regularly. And I was going to email you separately, but I hope we're just going to get you right back on the schedule immediately to do this session again, maybe 4 more times in the next couple months. But yeah, so we still, are planning for the upcoming year. And so if you have ideas like this, but yeah, at this point, SAMHSA wants us mostly to focus on Region 10 folks, but we could certainly think about it because I imagine this is a pretty popular topic. So stay tuned. And
sure.
If you don't know about the leadership learning community and you're in Region 10, please, Peyton will put the link to the chat. And have we picked all the people already though, Peyton? We have already picked that group? Oh yeah, because it's starting pretty soon. But we're going to do it again, I think. I can just tell people are eating us up. So please stay tuned. We'll have some more events with Lamar for sure.
So look, I'm halfway through and I'm already brought back. That's how you leave a show, people. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Take note. Use me as a model. That's how you do it. Get value early.
Sorry, one last thing. Someone wrote in the Q&A, is there any way that other MHTTCs or anyone, I believe you're for hire, correct? I mean, so anyone can reach out to you. So at the end, we will give you Lamar's info because you may want to bring Lamar in for some other reason. So we don't need to hog all the love, but so happy to get everybody his email. I think the link on the page has your website, Lewis Family Consulting, and that probably is a good way. But we'll get your email and such in the
No worries. Yeah. I put that slide in here too, but we're gonna,
perfect.
Hey, yes, I'm here. Nope, it's all good. I appreciate it. That's a good way to break up the monotony. But no, for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely for hire. That's I've just got a son in college, got an 8-year-old daughter who wants to do everything under the sun. Hey, and still got bills to pay. So yes, please. I mean, that being said, it's never just about the money, right? Like I really love what I do. Hopefully y'all can tell that I really enjoy because, and I tell people this all the time, in all seriousness, I didn't get this, right? Like when I got in this field 2 years ago, because I told you I just turned 22 a couple days ago. But no, in all seriousness, it was just kind of like, and me and Christina talked about this a little bit in the podcast, like it was just kind of like, hey, you like working with kids? Have fun. There was no training. There was no, hey, this is how you do this. This is how you document. This is what a treatment plan is. This is what ADHD looks like. This is what intermittent explosive. So none of that. It just was like, hey, you like working with kids? Figure it out. And it wasn't until I went to get my master's and went through many terrible experiences where I realized like, oh, there's a whole lot I missed. And even post that, it was a whole lot I was missing. So anytime I get a chance to get in front of people who serve, no matter what the capacity is, I always hope that I can be a resource, right? In whatever way I can be, so that, moving forward, that at least somebody here tried to give me some insight. Like I said, I got thrown out in the fire, and a lot of what I learned the hard way. And I don't want that for you all. And to be fair, I don't want that for the people that we serve, right? They deserve the best of us. They deserve us feeling supported and valued and respected. And so if in no other space you get that, anytime you with me, that's my hope, is that when you leave, you feel a little bit better than when you got here. I can't fix all the problems, but if you feel better, I did my part. All right. Let's move on. This is a little activity. And again, this will be more reflective than anything, but I hope you all know those ladies. If you don't, I guess I'm telling my age again, Peyton, you know what I'm saying? I guess me and you aren't as close as age as I thought we were.
No, Lamar, all the kids watch these on streaming, so it's very popular.
I didn't know
perhaps, but they weren't alive then, many of them. So.
Okay, all right, so I can keep that joke then. Cool, I'm good to know. Back pocket. All right, so these are the Golden Girls. I remember watching this with my mom when I was little. And so if you know Golden Girls, one of the biggest parts of it is this very iconic introduction, right? And I'm not going to sing the song to you because I didn't keep my voice today, but maybe one day I'll sing y'all the song, right? But the lyrics go, if you threw a party and you invited everyone you knew, you would see the biggest gift would be from me. And the card attached would say what? Thank you for being a friend. Why do I use this as a reference? Well, we're thinking about your retirement party, right? And I want you all to kind of take a second, no matter where you are. You don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to, like, unless you just feel comfortable with that. But I just want you just to kind of be in a space where you can visualize what I'm going, these questions I'm gonna ask you. And I want you to kind of think about your retirement party, right? And I want you to think about the following, like, who is there? Who is at this retirement party? What are the guests saying about you, right? How would they describe you as a leader? Would they say, hey, you know, he was there for me, man. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if he didn't pour into me and mentor me. Or would they say, I wish they hurry up with this party so I can get the punch and cake and I can go back to my office because I really don't want to be around this dude. He was terrible, right? Whose lives did you positively impact? What would your employer say about you? You know, the people you worked for. What would your employees say about you, the people who work for you? And what about your clients, the people that you served? And I think the big question I pose is, how would you want to be remembered, right? Why is this important to think about? Well, something else we briefly touched on in our podcast, I'm gonna keep referencing that because I think it was a good, quick nugget of just good information. But what is the why, right? Stephen Covey says, begin with the ending in mind. Right? If you don't know what you want the end to look like, it's kind of hard to know where you want to start. So I want you to think about this. And, you know, you can spend more time in your own time of reflection. And we'll talk about reflection in a second. Really think about when it's all said and done, when you decide you've given your all to your community, to the world, and the world has benefited from your presence, what do you want your legacy to be like? Right. I don't know if we think about that enough, I think as a society, but even more so as just individuals in the work that we do. We know we need to pay bills. We know we need to take care of people. We know we need to do that kind of stuff. But when it's all said and done, there will be an end. We don't know when, but there will be an end. What do you want that to look like for you? And just think about that. You know, I'm existential, so, you know, I feel philosophical, so I like to get deep every now and then. So I want y'all just to ponder that as we move forward. We see the image. You see the image up there. What kind of leader are you? Let's look at the picture for a second. And I want y'all to kind of see what we've been talking about. What we've been talking about, and I'm doing good on my time agreement. Looks like we got two different kinds of leaders, right? Right. What are some differences that you all see between the two? Just, you know, just throw a few out there. I know I'm not gonna be able to read them all, but just throw a few out there and let me know what you think. The one on the left. And what's the one on helping versus spotlight? That's a good one. That's a good one to say. Disconnection on the right. Yep. I like it. Helping versus directing. Come with me versus do what I say. Yep. Power with versus power over. That's good, Sasha. That was good. Leader versus tyrant. One who is helping come up the ladder. Lifting versus carrying. That's good. Helping instead of doing the heavy lifting. Yep. All of those. I love all those answers. I would agree, right? You have one where the individual is being pulled up, right, by the leader. The leader is a little bit higher up, right? But they're still trying to pull somebody up, and they're still trying to pull somebody up. When we're talking about this other person, and to be fair, there are many different perspectives. I've heard a lot of different perspectives with this breakdown that I didn't even think was a thing, but it really is. The other person, I've heard somebody say that the one on the right, I think that's right for you all, is giving direction. So they're like at the top. They're like, you know, giving the direction like in a positive way. You can see it that way. I didn't see it that way, but you can see it that way, right? To me, it looks like, yeah, I'm giving direction, but you all are doing the heavy lifting. So I challenge you all to look at this and really wonder and ponder, what kind of leader are you? You know, are you one who's always looking to bring people up with you? Are you looking to kind of share the spotlight? Are you looking to as you move up, have others behind you. There's a book about leadership called Multipliers, where we're trying to multiply other leaders, right? We're trying to develop other people. So which one are you? Are you one who kind of lets other people do the lifting, and you give, and there's a place for vision. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. We need to have a vision, right? We need to have somebody to be a visionary. I find in my personal experience that the best visionaries are those who have went through some things and can see clearly from that vantage point. They've done the work, or they're doing the work alongside you. They could just step up for a second and say, oh, I see that down there. Maybe let's go that direction. That's my perspective. But I appreciate everybody's diverse perspectives. I don't have all the answers. I say that all the time. I just have my answers, and I hope my answers work for you all. Right? So a question I want to pose to you all, and something else we talked about in this podcast briefly, I didn't even know was going to touch on so many things in the podcast. We only had like 10, 12 minutes where we touched on a whole bunch of stuff. Whose job is it to develop you as a leader? Think about that. You don't have to answer that. I want you to think about that. Whose job is it to develop you as a leader? Right? Think about that. Think about that. And I want you all to take notes of something. I'm glad some of you all are saying my own and mine. That's exactly what I would say. And I'm going to save the story for the podcast so you can go listen to that and get the punchline, right? But I want you all to think about, I want you to answer this, because we're going to come back to this. What kind of leader are you? If you could put it in one or two words, what kind of leader are you? I want you to make note of that. Either type it somewhere, write it down, whatever. Hold that thought. What kind of leader are you? Okay? Keep that in mind. You don't have to answer it now. I know some of you all, because you are high achievers, but not right now. Hold that thought. Okay? So we're going to move into part 2, the holistic approach. The holistic approach. When we talk about the holistic approach, if you saw the title, right, we're talking about wellness, compassion, and growth. So what we're going to do now is flesh out each of those ideas and give a practical method you can use to develop that area, right? So it'll be wellness, blank, compassion, blank, growth, blank.
Thank you. Sorry, I figured raising my hand would be the fastest. I just want to know, I wanted to encourage folks, because I think, as always, riveting material, and then everyone's going to come up with questions 5 minutes before we have to end. So just a shout out, if you have a question that you would like Lamar to address later, please throw that in the Q&A now. Before then we can see how much time we need. Mm-hmm. And then Lamar, what time were you thinking to aim to address questions, so I can be
well, you
aware
I can adjust anywhere I need to adjust. So
okay, I'll just see how many pop in, and then I'll do this again if we have 30 in there. Okay, thank you.
For sure.
Okay,
just give me like or something, and I'll know to wrap it up. But I'm thinking, maybe the next 30-ish or so. But it all depends on how the spirit moves. If I feel like I'm, but no, I think I want to just shout out Christopher. I hope I pronounced your name right. Archiapoli. I might be wrong. If I am, I'm sorry. But he said, I have a responsibility, but it also requires a holistic approach within the organization to develop leaders. And Chris, close enough? I'm tried, brother. I definitely tried. Yes, 100%. And that's partially what we're working to create, right? Taking our own personal accountability for our development, while also developing cultures of, like I said earlier, we were talking about person-centered, strength-based, learning-oriented, and solution-focused, right? We have to be, from a holistic perspective, learning-oriented. If we're not oriented towards learning, we're missing things. What's the point of having all this data from all these reports we have to do if we're not using it to develop not just better interventions or ways to get more grants or whatever the case may be, but also develop internally so that we can identify those with the potential to cultivate, right? So you're 100% right. I would agree with that 100%. That is also, like I always say, in a perfect world, how that happens in reality, I don't know. That's another question for another day. But we're going to change that. That's what we're here for. We're here to make changes. That's why I'm here. While we're here, we're working on this together. You're not in this fight alone. You got me and I got your back. The holistic approach, again, we're talking about wellness, compassion, growth. All right. So I'm going to go and touch on each one, again, give a practical application for it. And then, because that's part of my objectives, so I can come back, right? All right. So wellness, right? Wellness is a holistic integration of the physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, fueling the body, engaging the mind, and nurturing the spirit. Woo, look at all that. But I think it's even more than that, right? Look at all these different words within this picture here, right? We're talking about holistic wellness. It's easy for us to compartmentalize it in mind, body, spirit. Now, when I talk about spiritual, and I want to make sure I'm receptive to everybody's spiritual experience, right? Whether that be you believe in God, you don't believe in God, you're Christian, you're atheist, you're Buddhist, you believe in ancient tribal traditions, you're Muslim, you're practice Judaism, or some variation in between. That's not my point. That to me is moot. What's important is that we are acknowledging things greater than ourselves, outside of ourselves, right? That could be service. For some of us, spirituality is us serving, right? That's us serving as bigger than ourselves, right? It's not coming from a judgy space or anything like that. So I want to make sure I clearly say that, because I know I've say a few spiritual phrases and stuff like that. It's because I've been raised in the church my whole life. So certain phrases just come. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. I don't want to off-put anybody as well. So I just want to make sure I gave that disclaimer, because we are here to build community. We're not here to tear people down or to make people feel judged or unwanted because they don't see things the way we see them, right? That's a part of wellness to me. When we're talking about our physical, thank you all for the hearts. I appreciate that. I'm glad that resonated with you all, because I know sometimes you get in places, you're like, they don't care what I'm talking about. They just want to say what they want to say. And that's not me. I want y'all to feel this is a space. Again, I want to model a space for us to create in our own environments, right? A space of openness, a space of vulnerability, a space of transparency, but also a space of accountability, of creativity, of leadership, right? And all this plays a factor. When we're talking about wellness, we're talking about all these different areas of our life that can be impacted by that. Now, I want you all to think about the people that you serve, right? And let's put a 1 in the chat for this. How many people work with people who have what we would call, when I was coming up, we called it comorbidities. They got a mental health diagnosis or a substance use diagnosis, and they have some major health issues taking place. How many people deal with that kind of population like that? How much you want to guess is ones in here? Ones. I'm sure. Yeah, most of us deal with that, right? And so we talked about moving from the medical model to the recovery model earlier, right? So we talk about recovery. Recovery is holistic. There's a reason why, and I think we do have a few peer support or peer specialists here who work in peer support programs. There's a reason why they do RAP, right? Or WHAM, and these different interventions that deal with whole health and wellness. We're not just dealing with your mental health, we're dealing with your physical health as well, because we now know our mental health is often impacted by our physical health, right? So we're talking about wellness. We need to approach it from a holistic perspective. Now, what does this mean for our staff? I can't speak for anybody else here, but where y'all see me now, this is my office. Yeah. And I just put that picture up today so I could look halfway normal and not my old laptop behind me, right? So I wanted to make it look at least somewhat festive for you all, because you all are important to me. So we all sit at the computer most of the day, right? And I can't speak for you all, but I know if I don't move, if I don't get up, if I don't take a break, if I don't drink some water, if I don't stretch, if I don't go eat some good food, if I don't go see the sun, that impacts my performance. If I'm not sleeping well, if I'm not eating well, right? All these things can impact if I'm stressed. That's a whole thing within itself. I could spend the rest of the time talking about stress and time in the future, right? Stress impacts how we provide service. So if we're not aware or managing our wellness as leaders, then it's hard for us to be able to identify that in other people and then provide them with the support that we need. Let me ask y'all a question. How many of you all who are leaders tell your staff, hey, take your PTO? You need a break. You burn out. Take your PTO. And you don't take your PTO. It was just me? Was it just me? I know it was just me. I know it wasn't. How many of y'all done that? You would tell you, this person would come to you. I had staff members come to me crying. I mean, just going through all kind of life struggles. And I said, well, let's take some PTO. You got, I looked at the chart, you got about 80 hours. Take this. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. And what I have since learned in hindsight, being 2020, that figured out was me extending myself, adding stress to myself. You see what I'm saying? So again, let us not be hypocrites to our own message. Allow us the opportunity to say, I'm modeling wellness. I have boundaries. Don't call me after this time, not because I don't want to hear it, but because I have a life outside of here as well. I'm a whole person just like you are, right? Thinking about that. And a way we can do that is self-reflection. Now, I will tell you that I am big on self-reflection. I find in my work as a leader, as a consultant, as a therapist, as a man, that many people lack self-awareness because many people don't like to spend time reflecting. Spend time, I call it alone time. Spend time with yourself to reflect on various things in your life. And self-reflection is important because it raises awareness to less conscious areas of our being. You can identify motivations, fears, patterns, values, barriers, and understanding these will help guide your choices and give you the tools to change parts of your life that no longer serve you. But how do you know it no longer serves you or is no longer in alignment with you if you don't spend time reflecting on it? Intentionally reflecting on it, really pondering and thinking about these things. Am I stressed out? The only way I realize I'm stressed out is if I pay attention to my behaviors. I get a little more irritable. I get a little more frustrated, might be a little more snappy, right? I'm not as laid back as I am in settings like this. I'm a little more tense and keyed up, right? If I don't pay attention to myself, I don't know that. I don't spend time reflecting on, man, why am I getting these reactions from people when I usually don't? What's the difference, right? And I firmly believe, and I approach people from the aspect of you all know you better than anybody. You're the expert of your experience. I tell people all the time, I know me. I know when certain things are imbalanced, right? And so knowing that, I don't assume that I know what you all are going through, but I can generally relate. But I'm aware of myself. I'm aware of the fact that I don't know everything, but I do know me. And if you take nothing else from this part of the presentation, remembering that awareness is key, right? And that's why reflection is important. So if you stumble when you think about these things, asking yourself, like, what kind of leader am I? What do I value? What's more important for me? Is it the short-term stuff? Is it putting out fires? Or is it like that long-term vision? What kind of positive actions am I taking as a leader? And what areas can I continue to grow? What kind of questions am I asking the people on my team? What am I trying to accomplish? And how do people I work with learn? Am I giving them information in a way that they can receive it? Or am I giving it in a way that's easiest for me? Like, these are just general kind of questions to kind of ponder with yourself, to kind of say, okay, and keep yourself in alignment with what you value as a leader, right? Which is critically important. So I told y'all earlier to identify your best quality as a leader, right? Now I want you to add to that one way that you can leverage that moving forward. This is going to require self-reflection, right? And if you don't have an answer now or before we end this, that's fine. I want you to think about it, right? And keep this with you. This is something I want you to think about. Whatever your best quality is as a leader, how can you leverage that moving forward? So I'll give myself as an example. I'm pretty compassionate, right? I care about people. I want to understand people's stories. I want to be there for people, support people, and help people, right? Well, how can I leverage that? How can I leverage compassion as a leadership trait? Well, one way I can do that is actually be intentional about listening to people that I lead and get to deeper conversations to identify how I can best support. So, hey, Christina, man, look like the past few days, you've been kind of really stressed out. Everything all right? Everything cool? Oh, well, we got this family trip coming up. We got this, we got that, Oh,
have you been in my head? Yeah.
But no, I'm just giving that was really a random example, but if it works, go me. But but no, like in all seriousness, like conversations like that, if you're paying attention to people, and that's to me how you can put compassion into action. If you're actually paying attention to people, seeing them, if I know what your baseline is, like all of us, have, I'm assuming, I don't say all of us, but we live with people at some point, a caregiver, siblings, other family, friends, dorm room, whatever. If you have a partner, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can tell if you've been around somebody long enough when they're not how they usually are. And if you're paying attention to it, it's worth inquiry because that means something is changing, right? So that's why, to me, self-reflection is important, being aware. If I could partner self-reflection with awareness, and when it comes to wellness, we have to be aware of what we need so that we can show up, right, for the people that we serve and work with. I hope that makes sense for everybody. So if you don't do it yet, be like this gentleman here and really spend time in deep reflection. We try to unfurl your brow. My wife always tells me I furrow my brow too much. So try to unfurl your brow so you don't get what they call them, crow's feet. Is that what they call them? Crow's feet, crow's eyes, I don't know what they call them. I don't know. That's not my gift. Let's go. All right, we keep going. So I alluded to it. I forgot this was next. Compassion, right? And I like this picture because it kind of puts this into, like I just said, into action, right? Compassion is a verb. Compassion is a verb. What does that mean? It's an action word. You have to practice compassion. You have to do it. You have to recalibrate towards it. You have to continue to use that as your North Star, as your beacon. You have to continue to show up. And to be fair, there's a word I just found out recently from a younger client that I was working with. He said his social battery was drained. I said, what's a social battery? I didn't know right? But it's in essence, and I can experience, I've experienced this. Like when I do things like this, or when I'm like doing like presentations or workshop stuff and it's face-to-face, like I didn't notice how much it drained me, right? Because I give myself in that. So that term social battery made a bunch of sense once he explained it. I'm like, oh yeah, duh. Some of us, like, people are like, oh, you're so extroverted. No, I'm not. I'm really not. There's a reason why I'm sitting here. You know what I'm saying? But I know, and I don't also believe, I try to stay out of binary thinking. That's a whole nother conversation of the day. But I realize that, I have to be social. I have to interact with people. So I have to give myself compassion, is why I bring this up, right? I can't just constantly give that to other people and not give it to myself. I have to realize, hey, you just did a lot today. Maybe you do. It's okay to take this nap, bro. Like, it's cool. Dr. Kristen Neff has a lot of work around that, right? Around self-compassion. And one of the things that she teaches is to be a better friend to yourself, right? I tell my clients this all the time. Would you talk to your friend that way? Like if your best friend came to you and told you all the stuff you just said to me about you, what would you tell them? I would tell them it's okay. It's all right. Don't worry about it. I got your back and yada, yada, yada. You got to turn that on yourself, And when we talk about compassion, we define that. It's really about three things. It's attention to suffering and desired action to alleviate and prevent it, right? It's different from all the other, terms often used interchangeably, love, forgiveness, all that kind of stuff, because there are ways of being compassionate. And it's the desire for us to alleviate and prevent suffering. And I say that as we go back to when we talked about the problems with modern leadership, I intentionally, and Christina caught it, right, asked, what are some of the ones that you exhibit, right? Because, and I want you to know, everything I do has a point. I don't do anything by happenstance. I'm very thoughtful with this stuff, right? It gives us, now we have to look at ourselves, back to this reflection component, right? Okay, if this is what I don't like, and I want somebody to have compassion for me for dealing with this, am I giving that same thing to somebody else when I'm exhibiting some of these same things, right? And something that I want you all to think about, and this is a phrase that I reference a lot, is strive to be the leader you want to follow, right? Strive to be the leader that you want to follow, and analyze situations from the understanding that no one wants to be bad at their job, and start from there, right? One of my mentors, I sought out, because again, it was my responsibility to improve, right? He said that to me one day, and it totally like was an aha moment. Like most people, this is from my experience, I would say most people don't show up to work and say, you know what, I'm gonna burn this thing down. I'm about to mess up everything. I'm gonna ruin everybody's mood. You know what I'm saying? Most people don't show up that way. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't do that. I'm gonna be clear on that. But most people don't show up like, I want to ruin everybody's day. I want to mess up the department. I want to do this. Most people truly want to do a good job. And as leaders, it's our job to help them identify what that is, right? And not just on paper, right? Because there are a lot of people, I think about a gentleman who used to work for me. I used to work with him. Then when I got promoted, he used to work for me. He was great with the client. Oh man, fantastic. They loved him. He was great with them. Amazing. Like I wouldn't trade him for the world. And that's how I approached the situations. I approached him as a staff member. Like I really didn't offer a lot of oversight for him because he handled it. Like he got it. What I found out the hard way is that he didn't play well with others, right? He was very, very much made the job hard for other people. And that made my job hard. I didn't know that at the time. So I say that because it's important for us to be cognizant of, but once we talked about it, he got better at it, right? But it took some time, took some coaching. He was an older guy. So he, when we get older, we kind of get set in our ways. So, but I say that because he was unaware, back to this awareness part, that he was even doing this stuff to people. He really genuinely was like confused, like, I'm not doing anything. I don't understand. But the evidence was there, right? So again, he didn't want to do a bad job. He wanted to do a great job. And he was doing a great job on paper. Documentation was in on time and clients loved him and all that. But when it came to his team and building a team, he wasn't. And so again, holistically, we had to look at the situation and address it a different way. So just again, from a compassionate perspective, be the leader you want to follow, and remember that no one wants to be bad at their job for the most part, and kind of start from there. Maybe there might be some people out there who do want to do a bad job, and hopefully they don't last in your situation too long. All right. So what does that look like in real time? One of the ways this looks like is trauma-informed leadership, right? And this is a whole thing within itself. But I wanted to bring this up as it relates to compassion. And for me, is a Q method, right? Compassion, understanding, empathy. So when we're dealing with people experiencing trauma, especially people that we serve, right? We generally try to be compassionate, understand where they come from, and provide them with empathy, right? Trying to understand where they come from, understand and help them share their feelings. And we have to apply that same approach to ourselves and those we serve. Like, again, we talked about it earlier. If Lamar has certain traumas that have kind of prompted him to show up, right, in this field, do this work, some of those same things, if left unresolved, can manifest in other ways, right, that can impact a person's work. So it's important for us to be aware. And I also don't want to be one of the people who always uses, some people just kind of use like terms like trauma and resilience as like catch-alls. Sometimes people just have poor behavior. Sometimes people, and it all comes from somewhere. I'm not denying that. But I also don't want us to weaponize terms like trauma or weaponize terms like resilience as deflections, right? Like, no, that's not what this is. We deal with a lot of pop psychology and people just throw out terms and don't really know what they mean, right? Because it's easy. But I'm talking about for real trauma. And there's a gentleman who wrote this phrase, and it makes sense. I just want to read this to you all. His name is Dave Tweedy, and this is a blog he wrote. Trauma-informed leadership is a way of understanding and appreciating there's an emotional world of experiences rumbling around beneath the surface. Trauma-informed leadership recognizes and honors the emotional scars that people may struggle with. It can help the leader have empathy and compassion for their employees, both powerful emotions themselves for leaders to have. It's a powerful emotion for leaders to have, right? So thinking about it like that, like we all have stuff we struggling with, we wrestling with, we dealing with. And all of us are different phases of our life, different things happen. We talked about stress earlier, right? So when we're trying to display this compassion, understanding, and empathy, we realize that. And for me, I want to share this with you all. And I know because we're all helpers and we're all working in behavioral health, mental health space, especially a lot of us are in community-based work. We want to do everything. A lot of us, they call them bleeding hearts back in the day, right? We want to put on our Superman or Superwoman cape, but ultimately, it's not your charge. From my perspective, your only charge is to hold space, right? Be able to hold space with people as they deal with these difficult times. And if you do that, that is oftentimes more than helpful. You have to remember that, and we're talking about self-care, you also have a cup, right, that you have to pour out sometimes. If my cup is full, I can't hold space for people. And that's my role on this planet, is like to help hold space for people and create spaces so people can hold space for others, right? And so if I'm depleted, I can't do that. If I'm full, I can't do that. I have to have just enough space to allow, I have to have enough space for myself to allow others to pour into me, either give me their stuff or pour into me some good stuff that I need to help me keep going, right? Like, hope y'all can conceptualize. If we were in person, I would conceptualize it better, but we across the country. Maybe one day be in person. That'd be dope. Also get more data. Where I always assume there's more going on than you're aware of, and ask yourself why, or a better question, what is causing this behavior? Right? I just always assume there's something else going on. Like the person I always assume something going on. I don't know what it is, but I assume something's going on. And I don't mind being wrong. Like, please, like I tell people all the time, if I'm wrong, correct me. But I don't want to assume that everything is okay, and it's not, right? So you want to inform our leadership. Again, like the gentleman said, remember that there is an emotional world of experiences rumbling around beneath the surface, which I think is a great way to frame that. And growth. I'm a big Tupac fan. He wrote a book of poetry called The Rose That Grew from the Concrete. And when I was younger, I didn't really get what that meant. But now I better understand, right? And if you, in Buddhism, there's the concept of the lotus flower growing from the mud, right? What does that mean? It means that these difficult circumstances are what's providing us the ground to bloom, especially in circumstances that we're not expected to. Right? You're not expecting a beautiful lotus to bloom from mud, not expecting a rose to bloom from the concrete. That's what growth is to me. Some of us on this call, I'm speaking for myself, but some of us on this call weren't expected to be where we are right now. If we look at statistically, we look at historically, you're not supposed to be here, right? Not in this way, not showing up how you're showing up, not being as successful as you are. And success is different for different people. But for some of us, I talked to a friend of mine about this earlier, just getting out of bed is a win. Some people, getting out of bed is a win. Like, at least I got up today. I stayed in bed all day and not did anything. So that to me is what growth is the best way I can conceptualize growth. And it goes to a fundamental question. Am I choosing to grow or am I choosing to shrink? And throughout the course of your day, there are moments where you can bloom or moments where you can shrink. And I think that shifting our perspective, I'm sure you all have heard this term before, by having a growth mindset. That's Dr. Carol Dweck in her book, which if you haven't read it, it's a great read, check it out. But in essence, we're talking about looking at obstacles as opportunities for growth. There's an area where you're not strong at. It's not a deficiency. It's an opportunity for you to grow and improve. And if you approach perspectives that way, you approach your work that way, your leadership that way, and be honest, hey, I'm still getting better. I'm gonna give a good example. When I used to do these trainings for my staff, I'm a reader. I'm like I said, if I could pan, you see all these books around me. I'd read journals and researches. I like to read, watch documentaries. Listen to podcasts. I'm that person. And so we would do these trainings, and I would like overload my staff with information. Oh, this is how you do this. This is how you, and my supervisor at the time said, hey, not everybody needs all of that. You know what I'm saying? Some people need a little less. You don't need to give them all of that. And I didn't really get it. Now I better understand doing this kind of stuff that people can only receive certain amount, like a bit of information. And if you can leave them with one or two things they can take away, use, and apply, you've done your job. If you overload and bombard with information, and there's place for that, right? I'm not saying you don't need to learn these things. I don't want to make it seem like that. I just know humans. And probably because I'm a little skewed working with teenagers a lot. Like their attention span is like this. You can't spend a bunch of time giving them. And if you've ever lectured a teenager or been lectured as a teenager, you know what that's like, right? At a point, you check out. So for me, trying to keep you engaged is important. So again, I had to learn that. I had to learn how to sometimes distill things down or not put everything on the slide, because why? You're not paying. It's too much going on. Let me just give you a picture and a word, and I can talk through the rest of the stuff because I know what I'm talking about, right? So once you think about these three terms in a minute, well, as I'm explaining them, right? Difference between but and. Difference between no but and yes and. And this is the $1 million question. Again, this is free relationship advice. This is also free leadership advice. Do you want solution or support? Do you want a solution or you want some support? Why is this a critical question? Well, if you like me, I'm hardwired towards problem solving. My mama is an engineer. She raised me that way. You figure it out. I'm like helping you type. That's how I was raised. I'm like Mowgli in the Jungle Book, right? You go out there and fend for yourself. But like in all seriousness, that taught me how to solve problems, right? Downside of that is sometimes people just, again, need you to hold space. And if I'm not aware of that, back to this awareness piece, I'm giving people information they don't need, right? And I'm doing myself a disservice. So just keep that in mind. And when we're thinking about growth, somebody mentioned something in the chat earlier about the systems, right, or what they work under. I want you all to think about, in your own circle of influence, how can we create a more equitable behavioral health system? That's what I'm hoping what we're growing towards, right? A more equitable behavioral health system. I believe everybody on this call is a genius in their own right. How can we take your genius and extrapolate that across wherever we are in this country to make a more equitable behavioral health system? There's something to ponder. I don't have the answers. I just want you to think about it, because I'm trying to keep my time agreement and make sure y'all can give y'all time to answer questions. So touch on this bias in leadership, right? I'm gonna talk about biases. We cannot create equity if we're not aware of our biases, right? We can't create equity if we're not aware of our biases. And when we talk about bias, we're talking about how we interpret situations. Now, we talk about cognitive biases or cognitive distortions, as some of us know with CBT, and I saw we have CBT for psychosis here at the, I'm about to mess up the acronym here, Region 10, I was going to say it like that because otherwise I'm going to mess up the acronym. NWMHTTC, there we go. Then we realize people have we create these, or philosophy, these logical fallacies, right? We have these mental shortcuts. They come from a place. We're not here to talk about all that right now, but I think we all have some understanding. If not, Google is your friend, right? When we talk about cognitive distortions, cognitive biases, we talk about things like jumping to conclusions, right? We talk about things like confirmation bias, which you hear a lot about, right? We talk about catastrophizing and emotional reasoning and things like that. Now, the question is, or what I want to pose to you all is, how can bias impact our leadership? I'm gonna give an example. If I'm jumping to a conclusion, and I'm gonna use Peyton because he is very thorough, right? But let's say, oh yeah, no, stupendous, I appreciate you. But let's say Peyton wasn't as thorough. And we met one time and Peyton said, hey, 12:30, 1 o'clock your time, we're gonna be on this call. See you in a few weeks. We talked months ago. Go ahead. I don't have information. So then I have to assume, right? You have to make a decision without all the information. Now I show up today ill-prepared. He didn't give me a topic. He didn't tell me how long I had, none of that. So I just assumed. You see what I'm saying? That's literally what jumping to a conclusion is. Now, if I'm a leader and I have a bias towards jumping to conclusions, how might that impact how I address my team? This is just stuff to think about, people. This is stuff to think about, right? If I have a hardwired towards emotional reasoning, which means because I feel something now it's real. If I took Christina's grinning at me as a personal affront, maybe she's laughing at me because it makes me feel bad. How might I treat her? These are things to think about, right? So we have to be aware of these biases in ourselves, and also be aware when we see it in other people. And also not just from a clinical perspective, right? When we dealing with people that we serve, I know it's a good, easy worksheet to go through. Hey, look, which one do you do? And talking about it like that, that's cool. But let's think about it from a leadership perspective, right? And if I know we have people who jump to conclusions a lot, then what can I do to address it as a leader? Maybe I need to give more information. Something to think about. Yeah, I think I touched on that pretty good because I know I'm nearing my time. So last things, and then we'll be open for questions, is a concept called PUC. I came up with, and hope you all know who that guy is over there. Again, I'm dating myself. But if you don't know Happy Gilmore, I don't know what to tell you. You notice, you see he's on a golf course, right? But you see what utensil he has, right? So if you ever see Happy Gilmore, I'm sure it's on Netflix still, because Adam Sandler signed some gigantic deal with them, so I'm sure it's on Netflix. He was playing golf. He initially was a hockey player. Hockey players hit pucks. That's why make the mental connection, y'all. Using this adult learning styles. Tell you everything has a reason, right? Plan, update, celebrate, keep going. If I can crystallize all this information into 4 phrases, we want to plan, update, celebrate, keep going. We're going to create plans. You got to have a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. You got to have a strategy. We're going to update the plans because, as we all know, like today, we have some tech difficulties. Plans do change. Things happen, right? But we're going to celebrate the wins. Good job. We're at the end. We pushed through all the issues, and we're going to keep going. Why? Because the work isn't done, right? And if you apply this simple process, plan, update, celebrate, keep going, to your own just personal development, personal life, and I found in myself there's been a change in my life. Now, where I'm still working is the celebration part, because sometimes I just plan, update, and keep going. I don't celebrate. So today, I would like for you all to celebrate yourself. I know we started with, a couple hundred, and I know it's went down because, 2 hours, I get it. But for those of you all who stayed, right, congratulate yourself for investing in you, right? You took some time out of your day to invest in your development, to improve yourself, to grow, to evolve, to hopefully gain something that'll make you a better leader, right? And that is big. That's not a minor thing. You could have been doing something else with your time, but you chose to be intentional, to dedicate it to yourself. So give yourself the celebration thingies or round of applause or hand claps, whatever it is you do, right? But give yourself a good job, man, because you could have not done it. And being engaged, replying, interacting in the chat, talking, asking questions, the whole nine. So thank you all for that. Parting thoughts. Remember, wellness, awareness is key, right? We're aware of what we need, we can get it done. Compassion, right? Phrase I like to use, look at the root, not the fruit. Why is this happening versus what is happening, right? And growth. Remember, become the leader that you want to follow, all right? Wellness, compassion, growth. Awareness, looking at the root, not the fruit, and becoming the leader you want to follow. Any questions? I guess we got question time.
Oh, yes, we do.
Okay.
Lamar. I'm going to start from the top, and I'm going to say, because there are 7, we have just enough time, so we're going to do 1-minute answers. I'm being a micromanager. Can anyone tell?
Okay.
So yeah, so we can get to all of these. All right. So sort of in jest. Okay. One is a question, and I think the answer could be you just email us some stuff and we'll put it on the product page. But someone asks if you have any recommended reading on the topic of holistic leadership. So maybe you could email us stuff, and then what we do is we take the recording of this webinar and the slides and all of that and put that on a page that we share with you, and then those could be listed there. Or do you have a different way you'd want to share that? Oh, I put that in the chat already.
Okay, all right, just plug my book. Yeah.
You know I did.
That's one. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I have reading resources that I compile. I can do that.
Okay.
It's not a problem.
Awesome. That'd be great, because I know you mentioned a lot of things in the talk, and people want to. Okay. You touched on this, but did you have any more you might add about what do you think accountability looks like while being? Oh, sorry. What do you think accountability while being trauma informed looks like in leadership?
What I learned about accountability is that accountability goes both ways. What I mean by that is, if I don't want to be held accountable, then it doesn't matter how you do it. I don't want it. I'm going to resist. So be mindful that though you might see a person's traumas or frailties or whatever you want to call it, if they don't want to be held accountable to it and they don't want to work through it, then you have to approach it from a different perspective. And sometimes you have to invite people to a new experience. Y'all can read between the lines what that means, because that it's not going to work with what you're trying to do. So I would just say, ensure that the accountability goes both ways. They want it, they're open to receive it. And from a leader higher standpoint, again, creating spaces for that, and hopefully people who need it will participate.
Yeah, and I know for me, I think where it comes down to is if you are being trauma informed and you are aware of what your team and your staff are going through, and maybe some people share a lot, some people don't share anything, but you can find out a lot about a person that you're supervising, and then you are up against this really difficult choice, right, of maybe performance is suffering. And I don't know if this is where the question comes from, but performance is suffering or something's not getting done, and yet you feel a lot for that person. And but to me, there are lines where it's still a job. And so it's trying to hold all of that in the same place, because at the end of the day, we're beholden to the folks we're serving, but we want to also be beholden to the folks we're supporting as team members. But it's a really difficult thing. So just acknowledging that. What suggestions do you have for middle managers who observe and witness imposter syndrome as well as incompetence from higher management? How should this be approached? I swear, I didn't really know about the term imposter syndrome until a few years ago. And now I feel like I'm saying it on the daily with people, personally, professionally, all of that. So how would you respond to that?
So that's a twofold question. So I'll do my best for 30 seconds each, I guess. With the imposter syndrome, again, I think it's important to acknowledge that people come here with stuff. And I think that if you don't acknowledge that, I think that's the biggest part of starting there. Showing that compassion that we spoke about earlier, and then providing space to provide a different perspective. What I'm learning is that some people, no matter how much you coach them up, build them up, motivate them, they're still going to have those thoughts. So again, applying, how would you do it if you had somebody who you trying to motivate to be sober, right? What would you do to motivate them? Like, it's a similar kind of perspective. Sometimes we don't apply our natural skills or the natural gifts or the skills we've developed to these situations. We think it's something totally separate, and it's not. If you come here with a helping heart, that same helping heart that brought you here is what's going to help you resolve some of these issues. When it comes to incompetence with leadership, I would say that's a matter of perspective. You might be incompetent if you dealt with some of the stuff they dealt with. I don't know. I'm just saying. Yep. But in reality, focus on what you can control.
Yeah. That's,
to me, the biggest lesson I've learned in my life really recently is just focus on what you can control, what you can't.
That's everybody else. Yeah. I would say it'd be nice to explore imposter syndrome, because what came up for me in a conversation with someone was, we all have learning and growth, and hopefully we're aware of that. But I wonder why we turn to this feeling of, oh no, I must be an imposter, and all that entails, versus I just need to learn this thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so why is that some may have that response versus, oh, I just don't know this, and they would never even, so I don't know what that says, but I think that's
it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack with that.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I have more to say, but I know for the sake of brevity.
We're going. People are putting more questions. Okay. What recommendations do you have for up and coming leaders or people in lower management being led by people with negative leadership qualities? This is probably on the heels of what you just said, but I want to give you a chance to answer that.
No, I would just reiterate, focus on what you can control and take your leadership seriously. You developing yourself seriously. Again, I've experienced it, lived it, got the t-shirt, the whole nine. Some people, something that I learned in my undergrad political theory class that has stuck with me since then, that's been, I'm not going to tell you how many years ago, but the first law of human nature is self-preservation. And I kind of frame people's decisions that way. And it's helped me to better show compassion, because I realize people are trying to usually take care of themselves in some way. If a person is negative, there's a reason for it. If there's negative towards you, there's a reason for it. If you feel like investing the energy investigating that, go for it. For me, I focus on doing my job, doing it well, and the work speaks for itself. I don't focus on that. I can't. I don't have the bandwidth for it. So I would just recommend you focusing on developing yourself, continuing to grow, evolve, and their negativity will be outweighed by your positivity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, finding some other perspectives for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I know you talked about the person who was struggling being a team player.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have tips on how you dealt with that? Any further things you would say?
Yeah, I would say having very open and honest conversations is probably the biggest thing. Building, if you've built a relationship with a person and you have that rapport, I would say being very open and transparent with them is probably the best way to resolve that. There's no need to beat around the bush. There's no need to act like it's not an issue. Hey, you do great work. I enjoy you as an employee. However, this is what's going on. We need to figure this out, and if they're who you think they are, they may take it away at the beginning, but eventually they'll see you have their best interest at heart. And I think that, but if you ain't doing that on the front end, you're not going to get that on the back end. So
yeah. When in doubt, transparency seems always a good way.
Radical honesty, for sure.
Yeah. In what settings did you work with teenagers? Someone asked.
Oh, I worked in psych hospitals, group homes, school settings, just community kind of like mentorship. Again, I told you, I coach basketball. So, across several different types of settings. But
nice.
Yeah, professionally, mostly foster homes, group homes, psych hospitals.
Peyton, I apologize. I did not see if you already put the eval link in the chat. I think you did. I know some people have had to leave, but
Told you, thorough. There he
no,
is.
I know. Yeah. And so it'll remind people too, but I know, I mean, I don't, here's what my thing. I know what everyone's saying in the chat and everything, but want to make sure everyone can do their stuff. So this is a complex question. How would you best go about a somewhat flawless blanket application of a holistic driven leadership style to a team comprising of extremes, regards to generational gaps, general intelligence awareness, outlook of workspace, while maintaining that authenticity to self, consistency, and healthy boundaries?
Can you say the first part one more time?
Whew. How would you best go about sorry, the wording I'm just kind of hung up on, but how do you apply this holistic driven leadership style when you have a team that has a lot of extremes, a lot of different awareness levels, and also being authentic as you've been describing it? So complex, no team is all in harmony all the time. That's for sure.
For sure. I'm glad you used the word harmony. I'm gonna just bounce off of that. So earlier we talked about, I threw out a lot of different groups, right? Musical groups. And one thing that I have learned is that people will, how do I want to say this? We confuse harmony and teamwork, right? When we do teamwork, there is a hierarchy. If you've ever been on part of a team, seen a team, you watch the team, you realize they're like stars, and you realize that there are people on the bench and people, and that's how it goes. And the stars get the attention and the other ones don't. But when we're in harmony, we realize, and I don't know how many of y'all have ever been to a church before or heard a choir. If you ever heard a choir before, choir can sound beautiful, but if one person is off key, the entire choir sounds terrible, right? And everybody has a part to play. The altos have to sing their part, so the sopranos and the baritones and the tenors, for it to make a beautiful harmony, right? So this style of leadership keeps that in mind, keeps that into perspective. That, okay, I want to create harmony within my team. I want to build a team. I want to have teamwork for sure. You need that. But when we talk about harmony, that means whatever, if we're talking about extremes, which I try not to operate in, I try to find the gray, try to find the balance. There's something there that can bring us closer to center. And so with the harmony component, what I'm trying to say is, I use the gentleman we just spoke about. He was amazing with service provision and doing his notes on time, and making sure the program flowed. He had a hard time working with other people, right? So how can I bring it closer to center to where some of that same ability he would apply to somebody he's working with, as far as like client, he can do the same with the people that he works with as far as on his team. You see what I'm saying? So you have to be flexible in your thinking and see, okay, yes, we got this person is this age and this person, maybe there's a potential to connect some mentorship. Maybe there's a potential to, do some different things. So all that being said, it's not just like, hey, here, we want to be compassionate and promote wellness and promote growth. And here we are. Like, no, like I said, with compassion as a verb, like there are actions that we have to take, and we have to be aware of our team, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and then be strategic with how we can blend that together.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And we don't always ask people what are they enjoying or not enjoying, what would they like to do within their roles, within, reason. So I think that's a great way to get that harmony. I know we're over time, everyone, but I really appreciate y'all hanging in there. And Lamar, this has made my year, really. So I'm so glad we met, and we will be bringing you back. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you, Peyton, for doing all the stuff in the background. Thanks for bearing with us while we're in a funky little technical area today, but we did it. Puck away, right? I mean,
Puck
we're doing
away.
it.
Get your happy humor on, folks.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm celebrating. We did it, and I am just in awe. So thank you so much to everybody, and
for sure.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Indeed.
Yeah, we will leave this open just for a second if people want to say anything as they depart or grab something from the chat. But otherwise, we'll be closing up here in just a moment. But thank you so much, Lamar.
No, thank you all. I definitely appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to continuing to, do what I can do, man, for the home team. I really appreciate Peyton for holding it down. He's definitely solid, so I appreciate it.
Yes,
so, for sure.
Good job, Peyton. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.